should ask you is this. Did you kill Johnny Podres? No questions. I just want you to turn on the tape recorder. You have more than one tape, right? Yes, but Good. Just turn on the tape recorder. You got any smokes? The lawyer turned on the tape recorder, handed his client a cigarette, and lit it for him. Black drew hard, squinting as the smoke rushed into his lungs. Where do you want to start? The lawyer said, lighting a cigarette of his own. I guess there's only one place to start. At Broad and Erie. Chapter 1. The priest pulled up outside the church, put his car in park, and walked inside, glancing backward to see that he had locked the doors, as was his practice. Black and Leroy knew his habits like they knew everyone else's habits, because they watched. And watching paid off when it came to breaking into cars. Of course, watching paid off with houses, too. But they tried to stay out of houses because you could get caught in a house with nowhere to run. And there's nothing quite like being distracted from the task of rummaging through someone's bedroom drawers by the sensation of cold steel pressed against the back of your neck. Cars aren't quite that risky. People walk away from their cars and leave all kinds of things inside. Once they watched a man walk into one of the clubs on Broad and Erie with two women, right after he'd opened his trunk and put their fur coats inside. Another time they watched someone leave a case of CDs sitting on the front seat of his car as he went inside the barbecue place to order half a slab of pork ribs. They even profited from auto accidents. Like the time a woman crashed her car into a pole in front of the chicken place and left it there with a brand new JVC system inside, complete with equalizer, subwoofers, CD changer, and amplifier. Unattended cars often meant money. But on Sunday nights, when everything was half speed, there weren't any unattended cars with anything inside, which meant that there was only the flat tire thing. And Black knew that Leroy was intent on doing the flat tire thing that night. I got to get paid, Leroy said, talking quickly and with a slight stutter as he looked over his shoulder. You just did him 2 days ago, Black said, knowing that Leroy wasn't one to listen to reason. Just wait for somebody else. Man, I'm not waiting for nobody else. Black smiled, knowing that Leroy seldom waited for anything, especially when he wanted to get high. And that night, like every other night, Leroy wanted to get high. Black knew that Leroy wouldn't do anything else until he had hustled up enough money to get a hit. He also knew that after the first hit, they would both be off to the races. Leroy had just smoked 2 trays, $3 caps, so it was just a matter of time before he slashed the priest's tire. Black knew this because he knew Leroy. He even knew how Leroy would go about it. First, Leroy would take about 30 seconds to convince himself that slashing the priest's tire would work, even if he knew in his heart that it wouldn't. Second, he would poke a hole in the tire and wait for the priest to come out of the church. Then he would walk by, see the priest struggling with the flat, and offer to help him change it. If everything went right, the priest would pay him and Leroy would run up to Pop Squally's and buy 5 caps. If Black stayed close by, Leroy would probably give him one. He ain't gonna know, Leroy said. How he gonna know? He said this more to convince himself than to convince Black. He probably knew that Black thought he was stupid to do the same thing to the same person less than a week after the last time he did it. Black started to tell him as much, but thought better of it. All right, Black said evenly. I'll be over there. He walked across Broad Street and watched as Leroy poked the hole in the priest's tire. All Black could do was laugh, because he knew it wouldn't work. But Black didn't have anything else to do, so he stood over by the barbecue place, waiting, like Leroy, for the priest to come out of the church. He didn't have to wait for long. The priest came out and looked at his tire. Then Leroy came out from behind Lee's chicken and walked by like he was just passing through. Black couldn't help smiling because even from across the street, he could tell that Leroy was trying to look like a straight-up Good Samaritan. His smile broadened as he watched Leroy walk up to the priest, follow his gaze to the flat tire, and throw his hands up in the air as if to say, "Not again," like he was really sympathizing with him. The priest didn't react so dramatically. In fact, Black could tell that the priest saw right